Hey there! Have you ever noticed how the self-help world can sometimes feel like a never-ending checklist of things we're supposed to fix about ourselves? It's like, just when we think we've got one thing sorted, bam! Another issue pops up from nowhere. But what if I told you there's a different way? What if instead of constantly trying to fix ourselves, we shifted our focus to creating something we truly desire? Imagine that! So this episode explains the difference between choosing creative development over personal development. And trust me, the difference is huge. And if you're not quite feeling it yet, no worries. Just stick around for this episode because it's about to blow your mind and change your life. If there was a guarantee that you could create your dream life, a life that truly mattered to you, would you want it? My name is Terriane Palmer-Peacock, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the One Person Podcast. I have a belief that one person can make a difference in the world. That person is you. It's me. When we show up as the best version of ourselves, when we create and live our dream lives, we make a positive impact on ourselves and those around us. So if simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies, tools and tips on how to do that inspires you, then you are in the right place, my friend. So let's get started. NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, was my first real deep dive into the personal development world back in 2006. I'd had a mindset coach for my sports in both aerobics and speed water skiing, so I was familiar with the concepts. But a 3-day Breakthrough to Success event was my first life-changing event that spiraled me onto the multi-lane freeway of personal development. Now, like everything I do, I went all in and I jumped in the deep end. In 6 months, I went from being a first-time attendee to core crew running the sales team at the back of the events. 2 years later, I was on stage teaching those very same events. Now, what was great about being in that environment was I was surrounded by like-minded people who all wanted to change. In fact, I spent a good 14 years in that personal development mixed with spiritual growth industry. But here's the problem. It was brought to my attention and my awareness that personal development is always focusing on the problem. There's always a problem to fix or overcome or solve. And when you've been in it for as long as I have, eventually it gets exhausting. In fact, what I found was that it was chipping away at my self-confidence and my self-esteem. Because in self-help, you are always the problem. You are the cause and the effect. It's all you. If something's not working, it's your fault. You have to take responsibility for it. You created it, which is true, by the way. Not helpful, but true. You know, the whole industry is built around you being broken and needing fixing. Now, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here because I'm not saying all personal development is wrong. There's some great stuff out there, and in the right context, it's absolutely fabulous. You know, to me, anything that expands a person's awareness is really valuable because the premise that you have to know where you are, i.e. your starting point, well, that's essential if you want to create something new. But there are some things that I used to teach that I no longer teach and that I used to follow that I want to give perhaps another suggestion or pathway to travel down or follow down. And it begins with the truth of you are a divine spiritual being having a human experience. You are the divine. At your core, you are connected to all things, all time and space. You are God, the universe, the essence. You are source. You are everything. And you have the ability to manifest everything you will ever need or want. Now don't swipe away or push the pause button thinking my cheese has slipped off the cracker right now, okay? Stay with me here. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Can you accept that to be true? What that means is we as spiritual beings have the ability to change the human experience that we currently call our reality. Now, how many of you have travelled down the personal development path, have spent hours and hundreds of dollars working on your emotions, your limiting beliefs, changing your timeline and past history, reading books on how to be more, do more, have more? You know you're not the only one, right? Because we all have. But which direction are you facing when you do that? Are you facing forward in the direction you want to go? Or are you looking back at your past? Actually, that's a whole nother podcast episode in regards to what direction you're facing. The point I'm trying to make is we all have an unconscious agenda. The results we have in our life right now are a result of the decisions we've made up until now. And for most people, particularly if they have results they don't want in their life, it's incorrect decisions they've made stemming from an unconscious agenda. If we want to become powerful creators in our lives, which we all should desire to be, then we have to learn what correct action is in regards to the art of creating or manifesting. So correct action is simply looking at where our information is coming from and what structure we are operating in. Okay, that was technical jargon. Let me have another go at this. Most of us take action based on our emotions, how we feel, and the beliefs we have. So most of us have two voices in our head when we have a decision that we want to take action upon. So some people will only ever hear one voice, which is their unconscious agenda. Some, though, will have one voice that sits on one shoulder and another sits on the other shoulder. Who knows what I'm talking about, right? And there may even be some of you listening to this podcast that have multiple voices. But again, a whole nother episode. Okay, of those two voices, one will most probably be telling you to stay the same, stay safe, do what we know how to do. And the other voice is the one that's wanting change, that wants something new, that's unknown. It's also super scary. You see, most people allow their unconscious agenda, the one that wants to keep you safe and keep you doing the same things, rule the roost. Because it's unconscious and they don't have the awareness that it's making all the decisions. For example, someone who has an unconscious agenda of not being worthy will often be that person who's always helping other people out. They'll be an amazing organizer of events and parties and get-togethers, which we love, by the way. However, it's a way for them to satisfy their own unconscious mind and finally feel worthy enough. It's their unconscious agenda ruling the roost. Now, let me back things up a bit and go back to the beginning again. So the imprint period, depending on what you've studied, is from between a baby and 7 to 9 years old. It's when we are total sponges with no critical reasoning faculty in place. Now, our aim in life is to figure out how things are. So intuition is our natural ability to see truth and make new connections that may not be logical. It's divine guidance. Now, in our imprint period, having a human experience, we try to answer the question about how things are. Remember as a kid always asking, why? But why, mummy? But why, daddy? So we have experiences, and those experiences show us how it is. So we believe, so that's how it is. And then whatever happens, we just believe that's just how it is. So for example, if you had the belief it's hard to make money, well, that's just how it is. So we find evidence for that to be true. And by the time we reach our 40s and 50s, we've got mountains of evidence we've found. So no matter how much we want to change or how much we desire something different or something new, we're fighting against an incredibly powerful unconscious agenda that wants certainty. It's part of the human condition. It will always find new ways to stay the same. So when you're making decisions, unless you're aware of what's really going on, unconsciously, you'll find yourself in the same experience again and again and again. Now, there might be different people, you might be in a different location, but chances are the energy and the experience will be the same. Gosh, it sounds a bit doom and gloom, doesn't it? Okay, stay with me. I'm going to give you the light at the end of the tunnel. If you want to experience a new reality, you have to do things you don't know. So if you're a control freak who has to know everything before you're going to take an action step forward, then I'm afraid you are doomed to the reality you are currently living in. Just kidding. I'm saying this in jest, but not really. Kind of like sorry, not sorry. I don't know. needs to become your new mantra. I don't know is a really great place. In fact, I don't know is exactly how you were when you were a baby, totally innocent. That's what I don't know is, a place of innocence. Unfortunately, by the time we reached adulthood, every single one of us would have experienced a wound or two or three or many against our innocence. And in that wounding, we decided innocence was dangerous. But we're not babies or little kids anymore. We're adults. And as adults, we can strategically use innocence and the ability to not know as a tool in our creative endeavours. You see, when you go into innocence and you don't know and you embrace that feeling, that's when you get to create something completely different to what you've experienced before, something new. You see, without innocence, all you are doing is recreating that well-trodden path from your unconscious agenda. So in the personal development realm, you often hear people talking about negative beliefs to do with money, like money is bad, money is evil, money is the reason why my parents divorced. You wouldn't think the word innocence was in the same category, but it is. Innocence, vulnerability, ignorance, gullible, naivety. All these words downplay and make innocence negative. Use your intuition from innocence. Now, some of you may think I'm starting to talk a whole heap of hogwash now, airy, fairy, fruity stuff. The negative, right? But let me share this with you. Science is based around the idea of not knowing. Wind back the clock. In 1543 was the beginning of the scientific revolution. Before that, everyone knew how it was. There was a god in the sky. If there was thunder, you angered the gods. Or the gods were having a party. I'm not sure which one was the truth there. People just knew how things were. They didn't question anything. It just was. There was a knowing of how it is. Whatever religion it was that they followed, that's just how it was. Then the scientific revolution came along with the premise of, let's investigate. Why did that happen? I don't know. Let's investigate. Why? I don't know. Let's investigate. They had the courage to say, maybe if we could do X, Y, Z, I don't know. In fact, any incredible invention we have today comes from the state of not knowing. I don't know how that works, but I'm going to try and figure it out. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to give it a crack and see what happens. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to try and figure it out. The state of not knowing, particularly from innocence, is where all creativity happens. Now let me be very clear, this is not problem solving. This is using innocence to generate an idea and then using powerful questions in the state of not knowing to bring that idea into reality. I have an idea that water could be used for electricity. I have an idea that round wheels would make carts go faster. I have an idea that a solid machine could fly through the air. The don't knowing generated a desire to know, and that underpinned the creation that came to be. Science starts with not knowing. Art, poetry, writing a book or a new song, they all start with not knowing. A business starts with two people catering for individuals and may end up being the fastest growing corporate supplier. Entrepreneurship starts with not knowing. So any idea that not knowing is for the woo or the weak or the vulnerable or gullible is quite frankly a little ridiculous in my books. First, what you want to do is you want to set a point in the field of something that you want to exist. What do you want to create? How are you going to create that? I don't know. Now we have creative tension, which is what we need because that activates our creative genius. In the not knowing, you start making higher level genius connections. Not knowing is what pulls in those connections to you. So trying to know simply means you are living in the same place again and again and again. So where does that leave our beliefs and our unconscious agenda? Well, wherever it is now. You don't need to know what traumas you have or beliefs that hold you back. They've got nothing to do with this creative process except, quite frankly, get in the way. Tell them to get out of the way. They are what they are. You're not trying to get rid of them because there's no need. Accept them. They are a part of who you are. And when they rear their heads because they want attention, acknowledge them and get on with not knowing. So on that note, it's time to go. Not know. To your success. I'm Terriane Palmer-Peacock and the host of the One Person Podcast.